My husband's secret second life I never saw coming. I used to think I was one of the lucky ones. When I met Michael in my late 20s, it felt like I had finally found the person I'd been waiting for my whole life. He was funny, charming, and attentive in ways I had only seen in romantic movies. Friends would joke that I'd somehow won the jackpot, and honestly, I believed them. We dated for 3 years before getting married, and during that time, I couldn't point to a single glaring flaw in him. He seemed to love me deeply, wanted the same things I did, and made me feel safe. That's what makes everything I'm about to tell you so devastating, because it wasn't just betrayal. It was realizing that the man I trusted with my entire heart had been living a double life right under my nose. Michael and I built what looked like a perfect little family. We had a modest but cozy house, steady jobs, and eventually, 2 kids who became the center of my universe. Our parents adored each other, our friends would often say we were relationship goals, and we played our roles perfectly. I worked in marketing, he worked in IT, and in between the chaos of parenthood, bills, and house chores, we still found time to laugh, to watch shows together, to plan vacations we never quite took. If you had looked at us from the outside, you would have thought, this couple has it all figured out. The cracks didn't show immediately. They were subtle, almost invisible at first, tiny quirks in Michael's behavior that I brushed off as normal stress or quirks of personality. He had always been attentive with his phone, but suddenly it became an extension of his hand. He'd tilt the screen away if I walked by. He'd step outside to take calls that couldn't wait. When I'd ask who it was, he'd shrug and say it was a client or a coworker. He'd tell me I was overthinking if I pressed further, and because I didn't want to be the insecure wife, I dropped it. Then came the late nights at work. Michael had always been hardworking, but suddenly his schedule seemed relentless. He claimed he was working on a new project, staying late at the office. Sometimes he wouldn't be home until after midnight, and he'd creep into bed quietly so as not to wake me. At first, I chalked it up to ambition, I even admired his dedication. But over time, it started to feel off. Not just the hours, but the way he'd come home exhausted, sometimes with clothes that smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. The guilt in his eyes should have told me something. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me too closely when I wasn't looking. He'd overcompensate with flowers, gifts, and elaborate apologies about being a bad husband lately because of work stress, and I, desperate to hold on to the marriage I thought I had, believed him. I wanted to believe him. Everything came crashing down because of one small, almost trivial mistake. Michael had left his laptop open on the dining table one evening, claiming he had to run to the store for milk. I don't usually snoop, I hated the idea of digging through his things. But something compelled me that night. Maybe it was the way he'd rushed out, maybe it was the tiny voice in my gut that had been whispering for months. I opened his laptop, expecting nothing, maybe an innocent email chain. What I found still makes my stomach twist. There it was. An entire secret folder tucked inside his personal files, innocuously labeled work expenses. I clicked it open, and my heart stopped. Inside were dozens of photos, not of spreadsheets or receipts, but of a woman. A woman I didn't know. Pictures of her smiling, of her holding a baby, of her sitting next to Michael on a couch I didn't recognize. The timestamps went back years. My hand shook so badly I could barely control the mouse. One email thread sealed it, "Can't wait for the weekend with you and the kids. Love you." The kids. Plural. My head spun as I read further, he wasn't just cheating. He had another family. I sat there frozen, scrolling through messages that detailed weekends spent with her, vacations I never knew about, gifts he bought for them with money that was supposed to go to our household. The woman's name was Lauren, and she wasn't just some fling, she was a full partner in another life he had been carefully maintaining. And those kids, they were his. Our children had half-siblings I didn't even know existed. When Michael came back from the store, I confronted him immediately. I'll never forget the look on his face when he saw me holding his laptop. His eyes widened, his mouth opened, but no words came out at first. Then he stammered, "I can explain," as if there could possibly be an explanation. "What the hell is this, Michael?" I screamed, thrusting the laptop toward him. My voice shook, tears already streaming down my face. Who is she? Who are those kids? He tried, pathetically, to spin it. At first, he claimed she was just a friend going through a hard time. When I shoved the email in his face where he wrote, "Love you," he crumbled. He confessed, haltingly, cowardly, that he had been with Lauren for nearly as long as he'd been with me. That while I was home raising our babies, he was spending weekends with her, raising another set of kids. The world tilted on its axis. Every memory we'd shared, every promise he'd made, every moment of tenderness, it all felt poisoned. I remember sobbing, asking him how he could do this to me, to our children. He claimed he never meant for it to go this far, that he loved us both, that he couldn't choose. That's when something inside me broke. I realized I was married to a stranger. Michael stood in front of me, pale and trembling, his hands raised like he could physically shield himself from the storm of betrayal he'd unleashed. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way," he whispered, as though there was a way I could have discovered this that wouldn't shatter me. "You didn't mean for me to find out at all," I snapped. My chest felt like it was caving in, my breath sharp and ragged. The room seemed smaller, suffocating. The walls of our home, the one we'd painted together, decorated together, suddenly looked foreign, like the backdrop to a lie. Our kids were asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware that the foundation of their world had just crumbled. I wanted to scream, to throw things, but I forced myself to keep my voice low. I couldn't let them hear this. "How long?" I demanded, my voice a whisper edged with rage. Michael rubbed his face, avoiding my eyes. "Since before we got married," he admitted. His voice cracked, and in some twisted way, he sounded like the victim. I laughed then, a sharp, humorless sound that scared even me. "So, what, you proposed to me while already building a second family? While telling another woman you loved her? While knowing you had no intention of ever being honest with either of us?" He flinched like my words were physical blows. "I love you," he said, almost desperately. "I love our kids. I got in too deep. Lauren got pregnant, and I couldn't just abandon them. So you abandoned me instead." My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the table. "Do you even realize what you've done? You didn't just cheat. You've been living a double life. You've been lying to me, to your children, to everyone we know." The dam broke then. Years of pent-up anger I didn't even realize I had spilled out. Every late night, every lie about work, every empty excuse, suddenly it all made sense. He wasn't working late. He was with them. He wasn't stressed about clients. He was stressed about keeping his story straight. Michael tried to reach for me, but I recoiled like his touch burned. "Don't you dare," I hissed. "Don't you dare touch me. You disgust me." We argued for hours that night, voices rising and falling, the weight of his betrayal heavy between us. He begged me not to leave. He said he couldn't lose me, couldn't lose our kids. He promised he would end things with Lauren, that he would fix this. But every word out of his mouth was poison. How could I trust a man who had lied to me every single day of our marriage? Eventually, I told him to sleep in the guest room. I couldn't bear to share a bed with him. I stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with images of Lauren, of her kids, of Michael laughing with them the way he laughed with us. The betrayal wasn't just infidelity, it was an entire stolen life. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to live in denial, wasn't going to let him string me along with empty promises. I contacted a lawyer. Telling my parents was brutal. My mother cried with me, clutching my hand as though she could keep me from falling apart completely. My father's face turned red with anger. I'd never seen him so furious. "That bastard," he muttered. "He doesn't deserve you or those kids." Breaking the news to our children was even harder. They were too young to understand the full scope, but they knew something was wrong. "Why is Daddy sleeping in the other room?" my daughter asked, her big eyes full of confusion. I swallowed my heartbreak and told her that sometimes mommies and daddies can't live together anymore, but that we both loved her very much. She cried anyway. Michael tried to fight me on the divorce at first. He begged, he threatened, he manipulated. Think of the kids, he'd say, as though I wasn't already. He even tried to guilt me by saying Lauren would leave him if I went public with everything. That almost made me laugh. Why should I care about her heartbreak when mine was already in ashes? The truth, however, had a way of spreading. Word got out among our friends and family, and soon everyone knew. I didn't even have to tell Lauren. She found out when Michael stopped showing up as regularly and admitted I knew everything. She called me one night, her voice shaking, and told me she'd thought she was the only one. She had no idea I even existed. That gutted me in a whole new way. He hadn't just lied to me, he'd lied to her, too. He had built 2 entire lives on deception, and we were both collateral damage. I finalized the divorce within a year. It wasn't easy, and the legal battles were exhausting, but I refused to back down. Michael tried to paint himself as a devoted father, but the evidence of his double life worked against him. I got primary custody of our kids. He was granted visitation, but even that felt like too much. Financially, it was rough. I had to rebuild from scratch, juggle bills and work and childcare, all while trying to hold myself together emotionally. But slowly, I did it. I leaned on my parents, my friends, therapy. I poured my energy into my children, determined to give them stability, to protect them from their father's failures. Michael, meanwhile, spiraled. The last I heard, Lauren left him after learning the full scope of his lies. His relationship with his other children fractured, and he ended up alone, bouncing between apartments, his once perfect image destroyed. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder how he managed to live like that for so long. How he compartmentalized, how he looked me in the eye every day while living another life. But then I remind myself, it doesn't matter. I'll never truly understand, and I don't need to. What matters is that I got out. That I protected my kids from growing up in a house built on lies. That I chose myself, even when it hurt. Michael once told me he loved me, that I was his everything. But love doesn't look like betrayal. It doesn't look like deception. It doesn't look like a husband with a secret second life. Now, when people tell me I seem stronger, I smile. Because I am. I was broken, yes, but I rebuilt myself piece by piece. And while the scars remain, they are proof that I survived the fire he lit under my life, and I'll never let anyone burn me like that again.